Whenever a new Galaxy S phone comes out, everyone focuses on the Ultra model. It's the biggest and the best, so it's just Ultra, Ultra, Ultra. But we can't forget about the cheaper models in the lineup. In this case, the Samsung Galaxy S25 and the Galaxy S25 Plus. The problem is that Samsung itself seems to have forgotten about these two phones, which brings the question up, should these phones even exist? I want to make sure that you understand that these phones are very much super similar to what we saw last year with the Galaxy S24 series. So similar, in fact, that they might as well be the same phones. Both phones are the same size as last year with the same construction of Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the front and back and aluminum rails going around them. We also have the exact same display dimensions at 6.2 inch for the Galaxy S25 and 6.7 inch for the Galaxy S25 Plus. We have the same size bezels, the same screen resolution, the same everything. The only significant design difference between these phones and last year's phones are these black bezels that go around the cameras. Now, the cameras themselves haven't been updated, which I'll touch on in a bit. Samsung added these black bezels around them to make them more uniform, not only across the phone that they're attached to, but the entire phone lineup as well. It also makes them look a lot more like the cameras that we see on the Galaxy Z Fold 6. So Samsung is going for a cohesive look across its entire lineup. That's cool and all, but these phones look exactly the same as they have last year, which looked exactly the same as the phones from the previous year, and on and on and on. So basically, Samsung has a really boring design on its hands. If you want to get super nitpicky, Samsung did move the SIM tray hole. So now you don't risk accidentally putting your SIM tool into the microphone on the bottom of the phone. That's a great change, but not exactly super newsworthy. Samsung did bring in a whole new line of colors for these phones, but even those are pretty disappointing. The best one is navy, which is this nice, deep, dark blue. Then you have icy blue, which is just a lighter blue. And then you have silver shadow, which looks very similar to icy blue. And then you have mint, which is basically a green tinged version of silver shadow. So really, Samsung hasn't created that many new colors here. We just have two variations, either dark blue or versions of silver. Thankfully, there are some online exclusive models that you can get. You have coral red, pink gold, and blue black. Unfortunately, these are exclusive to Samsung.com, so that's the only place you'll be able to get them. For people who live in the United States who usually buy their phones through their carrier, you're not going to be able to get those colors. Okay, so not much has changed on the outside of the phones, but Samsung brought new changes on the inside, right? Well, yes and no. The biggest change is that all phones in the Galaxy S25 series across the world come with the latest and greatest Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite processor. That means there are no Exynos models in the Galaxy S25 lineup. This is great news. And the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy is a beast. It is far better than the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 that we saw in the Galaxy S24 series. You get more performance, and you even get them at the same temperatures as we saw last year. And if you happen to have an Exynos model in the Galaxy S24 series, the Galaxy S25 blows it out of the water across every metric in every benchmark that we run. And it even does it running significantly cooler than last year. One of the ways Samsung was able to deliver all this extra performance is by including new vapor chambers in all Galaxy S25 phones. In the Galaxy S25 and Galaxy S25 Plus, the vapor chambers are actually 15% bigger than last year, which is great to see. Finally, the last significant hardware change here is exclusive to the smaller model. This model jumps from 8 GB of RAM to 12 GB of RAM, meaning that both phones now have the same amount of RAM. This is great to see, but it doesn't really affect the Plus model because it stays the same at 12 GB, which it's had for a few years now. That's about it for significant hardware upgrades. Yeah, there's Wi-Fi 7 on board, and we get a bump to Bluetooth 5.4, but those won't really make much of a difference in your day-to-day life. And that means we have no other upgrades. We have no camera upgrades, we have no battery upgrades, we have the same charging speeds as the previous year, and we have no storage upgrades, at least here in the United States. That means that software is the major differentiator between these and last year's models. Now, to Samsung's credit, there are a lot of really cool features inside these phones. based around, of course, you guessed it, AI. Now, I have another video where I go over my 5 favorite features in these phones, which I will once again link to up in the top. But I want to touch on 2 really cool features that I think are amazing on these 2 phones. First, the Galaxy S25 series offers a new feature called Virtual Aperture. You need to use the Expert RAW app to access this, but when you do, it basically gives you a super powered portrait mode. When you're using portrait mode normally, what your phone does is it determines what the subject of the photo is and then blurs the background around it. But sometimes it might not pick the right subject, or sometimes it might not blur the background that well. With Virtual Aperture though, you're in control. You can choose what you want the subject to be, and then you can blur the background around it to different levels, almost like you were using a real camera. Of course, this is no replacement for actual camera hardware upgrades, which would have been great to see in the Galaxy S25 series. To put this into perspective, the Galaxy S25 series has the same camera hardware that we saw in the Galaxy S22 series. That's how long it's been since the 3 camera lenses on the back of these phones haven't been upgraded. The second feature I love in One UI 7 is a Galaxy AI feature that brings AI-powered search to the Gallery app and to Android settings. In the Gallery app, you use natural language to find a photo. So, for example, you could say, show me a photo with a pool in it, and it'll go through your gallery and find any photos that have a pool in it. This is super convenient and will definitely save a lot of time when you're trying to find that one specific photo to show your friend. But the real kicker here is that Samsung is bringing the same functionality to Android settings. And this is going to be a game changer. One UI is positively bursting with toggles and sliders and buttons and all sorts of settings that you can change. And it can be really overwhelming for people, especially if it's their first Samsung phone, and especially if they're coming from iOS. Instead of needing to blindly navigate through Android settings trying to find the setting that you want to change, you now have this AI-powered search bar. You can type or even talk and just ask for what you want, and One UI will find it and show it to you. This is going to make things so much easier and more intuitive for people. As an example, my dad has an iPhone. If he were to get a Galaxy S25, when he took it out of the box, he would see that it has the 3-button navigation system down there. Now, he might not even know that Android offers a very iOS-like gesture navigation system, so he wouldn't know that he could change it. But he could just go into the Android settings, tap into this box, and say, I don't like the bottom buttons. And Android settings would show him that he can change to gesture navigation. He wouldn't know to go in there and look for gesture navigation or anything like that, but this search box allows him to just say what he doesn't like or what he does like, and it'll find that setting for him. As cool as these new AI search bars are, they do present a new problem for the Galaxy S25 series, which is feature creep. For example, if you were to hold the side key down to launch Gemini and ask the questions that I just discussed, it won't work. That's because Gemini is a wholly different thing from the search bars that you'll find in Android settings and in the Gallery app. This is really confusing, and if Samsung's not careful, it's going to become a big problem for users down the line. Anyway, there are a whole bunch of other cool AI features in here that are going to be very useful for you. There's AI Select, which is a super powered version of Smart Select, which now understands what you're looking at on your phone so it can give you the proper options. There's also Now Brief, which will give you information about your day 3 times a day and give you updates on news, the weather, and other things like that. There's a new audio eraser function, which does pretty much exactly what you think it would. And there's Galaxy Log, which is going to be great for all those videographers out there who want to do a lot of color correction in post-production. And while I am super into all these cool new features, the big problem here though is that these are locked to the Galaxy S25 series now, but they're just software, so there's no reason for them to be locked to the Galaxy S25 series, and if history is any indication, all these features, or at least most of them, are going to come to the Galaxy S24 series and possibly even other phones before then. So that once again brings me back to my main question here, which is, why do these phones exist? So I know what Samsung is doing here. These phones aren't that much better than the Galaxy S24 series, but they are significantly better than the Galaxy S22 series. So Samsung is probably banking on the idea that people who have Samsung Galaxy S22s or earlier are going to look to upgrade. And when they do upgrade to a Galaxy S25, they're going to be really happy because this phone is going to be a lot better than the phone that they used to have. So in other words, Samsung isn't gunning after people who already own a Galaxy S24 series. They're just assuming those people are going to be just fine and they don't have any desire to upgrade to these. The problem is though, is that this is really lazy. And Samsung can't afford to be this lazy in the Android world. This is the strategy that we see from Apple. And Apple can get away with this strategy because most people, at least here in the United States, who buy an iPhone only buy iPhones. There's no competition for them to look at. They're not going to look at some other Android phone. All they're going to do is go into the shop and say, I want the newest and greatest iPhone, and they'll get it. But we Android users do have a lot of choice, and we're very aware of those choices. For example, the Pixel 9 series has some amazing phones in it, including the Pixel 9 Pro. This phone doesn't have an equal in the Galaxy S25 series, meaning a compact flagship with all the camera bells and whistles of the top tier model. Then you also have the Pixel 9 Pro XL, which is basically the Galaxy S25 Plus, but with a much, much better camera system. Outside of the Pixel ecosystem, you can go to the OnePlus 13, which is basically an Android fanboy's dream phone with a massive battery, super fast charging, and pretty much the same processor that you'll find in the Galaxy S25 series. The OnePlus 13 is also significantly cheaper than the Galaxy S25 Plus, making the choice between buying a Galaxy S25 Plus or buying a OnePlus 13 basically no choice at all. What I think Samsung should have done is just not launch these phones at all and just relied on the Galaxy S24 series. Instead, it could have put all of its resources into making the Galaxy S25 Ultra the big change and update that people want. Instead, the Galaxy S25 Ultra is also just an iterative upgrade, and Samsung even removed Bluetooth from the S Pen, which has upset a lot of people. But Samsung's mistakes are your gain, because now you can go and buy a Galaxy S24 instead of these phones and save a lot of money. The Galaxy S24 and the Galaxy S24 Plus are going to be deeply discounted now that the Galaxy S25 series is out. So go ahead and grab yourself a brand new smartphone that's almost exactly as good as these, that will probably get all the same software features for a fraction of the price. And if you want to save even more money, don't forget about the Samsung Galaxy S24 FE, which will probably also get a lot of the same features that we see on these phones and will cost you even less money. But I want to know what you think. Do you think the Galaxy S25 series should have launched at all? Obviously the Galaxy S25 Ultra should have launched, but do you think Samsung should have just held back and not launched these? Let me know down in the comments, and in the meantime, I will see you in the next video.